Thank you, Katie. Morning, everybody. Let's start with our call and response song of gratitude. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Manhattan. I am Dick Beeman, your convener for today. We are a liberal religious community in the spirit of the Enlightenment. We have no creed and place no restrictions on potential sources of truth and wisdom. We acknowledge that our understanding is limited by our imperfect vision, and we commit to an unbiased and unending quest for clearer perception, deeper knowledge, and more perfect and cogent truth. We encourage all honest challenges to those evolving truths. We offer friendship, community, a forum for honest exchange of ideas, and a sanctuary to develop in spirit in whatever direction is meaningful to you personally. Each and every one of you individually enhances us, all of us, by your attendance at our Sunday services. We believe that each of us can continue to grow, change, and blossom at any age and in any stage of life, while at the same time, proudly and openly embracing who we truly are, no matter our gender identities, sexual orientations, physical attributes, or any other innate features of our natural selves. We believe that embracing this philosophy will help us contribute to a more just and compassionate society. We open our hearts to you. Welcome all.
Thank you, Dick. I'm Pastor Isabel Call. I'm the minister here at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Manhattan. And I just love Dick's words of welcome. We open our hearts to you, which line up so well with our theme this month, widening the circle. It is a scary time to be alive, and the reaction is often to circle the wagons, join forces with those like us against them. But that's not what we're here for. We're here to widen the circle, even when we don't know how, even when we're fearful, because we know that we must live differently if we are to survive. So if you'd like to practice more deeply widening the circle, please join me and the racial justice team today at 4 p.m. This is the time in our service that we set aside to acknowledge the land upon which we gather, the people who lived interdependently with this land before our arrival, and their descendants unwillingly dispersed elsewhere. The compulsion to own land, even to own people, has led to incalculable cost and immeasurable grief. So let's take a moment to disentangle our hearts from the habits of control that give rise to enclosing land and excluding people from the gifts of life on this planet. We'll just take a few breaths here.
For today's chalice lighting, I took these words from a very uplifting personal message to me and Sylvia from a facilitator from the National Alliance for Mental Illness. One day at a time, reach out and walk with others who are also climbing Mount Everest every day. You can't know or control how things will turn out. Perhaps tragically, perhaps not. But I have learned that dwelling on my worst vision of what might happen kept robbing me of so many todays, just as surely as if a thief had stuck a gun in my ribs and demanded that I hand over my precious time. I had to train my mind over and over to notice the birds singing, the smell of fresh baking bread, the warmth of the water as I did the dishes, the joy of music, texture of clothes as I folded the laundry, the shine of the floor after I mopped it has proven vital. The shine of the floor after I mopped it, my granddaughter's laughter. Being present for my own life in the now has proven vital. Hope is the expectation of good, but I had to open my eyes to the good that was already here.
Hope is the expectation of good, but I have to open my eyes to the good that was already here.
Let's sing our opening hymn now. We have switched the order of the hymns in the order of service. So please join me and Renee in singing our opening hymn, number 183, The Wind of Change Forever Blowin'. Thank you, Renee. For today's Time for All Ages, Sylvia will tell us about a little creature who is beginning to widen its circle beyond the nest of its nuclear family and to discover the beginnings of its own developing power and autonomy.
When I heard Pastor Isabel was going to speak about using power, I began to wonder, how do children learn they have power? And how do they learn to use their agency in ethical and effective ways? This led to an engrossing conversation with Sandy Nelson, our religious education director. For many of us oldsters, even as very young children, we discovered our power often without adult supervision in the great outdoors. Observing the natural world, running around in multi-age neighborhood gangs, improvising with found or discarded objects, alone or in kid-organized activities, we learned to make decisions and plan, how to cooperate, and who we could successfully boss around. We learned how to look out for younger kids, about fairness, who to trust, how to protect ourselves physically and verbally, how to keep secrets, how to lie. We also learned about sex. We may or may not have gotten guidance from adults who allowed us to question conventional wisdom and authority and accepted us as ourselves. Our religious education program, based on our 7 principles, offers children a safe space to wonder and ask questions, to get factual information and reasoned answers, to have hands-on experiences and interactions that build confidence and understanding, to learn to trust their own judgment and to learn to exist responsibly and empathetically in the complex web of existence. I happened upon a children's book in which the protagonist, a fuzzy young bipedal person of unknown species, enters the wild world in a watchful yet confident way. This story reminds us that the youngest children, while relying on adults for guidance, support, and comfort, are learning that they themselves have power and are deciding how to use it. The Little Fur Family, a story by Margaret Wise Brown, pictures by Garth Williams. There was a little fur family, warm as toast, smaller than most, in little fur coats, and they lived in a warm wooden tree. The little fur father said, "Good morning," one day, put on his hat and went away, out into his little fur world. The little fur mother bathed her fur child, and off he went to play in the wild wood where they lived. It was a wild, wild wood. Wildflowers grew all over the ground, and wild winds blew through the air. Wild nuts fell from the wild nut trees, and wild grass tickled the fur child's nose, tickled his nose and made him sneeze, "Kerchoo! Kerchoo!" That sneeze woke up his grandpa, who lived in a hollow stump, and Grandpa came walking, thump, 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 and walked out of his hollow stump and said, "Bless you, my little fur grandson. Every time you sneeze, kerchoo!" went Grandpa. "Bless you, Grandpa," said the little fur child. "Thank you," said his grandpa. Then old Grandpa went thump, 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 and walked back into his hollow stump, and the fur child went on through the dark and sunny woods till he came to a little river full of fish. The fish didn't have any fur, and they didn't have any feet, and they swam around under the river. The little fur child watched them for a long time. Then he reached in the river and pulled out a fish and looked at it, and then kaplunk, he threw it back in the river. He reached into the air and he caught a flying bug, and he held it in his hand and he looked at it. The bug didn't have any fur. It was shiny and it had little wings. Then zip, he threw it back in the air. Then he caught a little tiny, tiny fur animal, the littlest fur animal in the world. It had warm, silky fur and even a little fur nose. So he kissed it right on its little fur nose and put it gently, ever so gently, back in the grass. And the little tiny, tiny fur animal ran down a hole into the ground. The sun went down beyond the river. The sky grew wild and red, and the little fur child turned around and ran for home. And just as the darkness got very dark, he bumped into Big Fur Mother, and she took her little fur child home in her arms and gave him his supper. And there was his father, who put him to bed, and they tucked him in bed all soft and warm. And they held his paw, and they sang him a song. "Sleep, sleep, our little fur child, out of the windiness, out of the wild. Sleep warm in your fur all night long, in your little fur family." This is a song. The end.
Thank you, Sylvia. It's now time for the offertory. We appreciate and rely on all the different ways our members and friends contribute to the fellowship, not just financially. However, one way to accomplish the latter is to donate online by going to UUFM.net, then clicking on the donate link and choosing the particular fund to which you want to contribute. This month's Helping Hand recipient is the Kansas Abortion Fund. Please write your joys and concerns in the chat box, and Pastor Isabel will read them later in the service. Now, please relax and enjoy today's offertory selection, which is Don't Stop Me Now, composed by Queen and played by Brene Brown. Thank you, Renee.
Thank you, starlings, for modeling for us what we can do together. And thank you, Dick and Sylvia and Renee and the other people. There's another treat in store for us during this service. So let's take a few moments to be with each other in joy and sorrow. If you haven't had a chance and you have a joy or a sorrow you want to share with the Gather community, there's still an opportunity. You can type it in the chat now. I have 3 I want to share. From Katie and Lindsay. We took a long weekend last week to visit Katie's grandmother with her mom and 2 uncles. It was a reunion with the Italian side of Katie's family. Grandmother Marion is going strong at almost 90, teaching watercolor and collage to folks in her assisted living community. Really a joy to see Grandy and the uncles in Florida after 4 years. And Dick shares a joy. My sister Anne is zooming in from Seattle. Welcome, Anne. Joining everybody else in the chat who's been welcoming you.
Thank you. Can't get my video to work.
We believe you're there. Glad you're here.
Thank you.
Dixie lets us know that she's doing very well after her surgery, and she's excited that her daughter is coming to visit today. Let's see, I'm seeing some others coming in. Let's see. Les shares a joy. We got our first video of our granddaughter in Boston doing a snow angel. Oh, fun. And Chris says it's so great that we are able to meet even under less than ideal circumstances. I still love it, he says, and everyone here. And Kathy Swenson shares, it was a joy to join Amelia and Pastor Isa at the Kansas Interfaith Action Days at the Topeka Capitol on Tuesday. Indeed, and I see, Kathy, you're wearing your Kifa button like me today, yeah. So a lot of joy this morning. Oh yes, and Rob is sharing, it was great to watch the Addams Family last night, Manhattan High School production. Mr. and Mrs. Pape do amazing work. Rob is grateful for their presence in our children's lives, and I heard that echoed before the service. Yeah, so many joys being shared. And just so good to have visitors with us, Gary and Kai joining with us, and Suzanne and Anne. So yeah, thank you all for sharing your joy. And also I want to acknowledge we come as complex beings. We bring joy and we bring sorrow. And so that is welcome too. That is welcome too. I'm going to share a meditation with you now with thanks to my retired colleague, Jay Abernathy. After the Amen, we'll have a moment of silence, which I will open and close with a bell. So here are our words of meditation. Let us join in a moment dedicated to that quiet power within us. It is within that we find the will to face the world. It is within that we find the love to embrace the world. It is within that we find our personal identity and know the world. Yet within us is also a great void. We feel this void at times of great loneliness frustration and despair. Sorrow, hatred, and greed, too, are within us. Just as we need to be alone at times to put things right, so do we need to be with others to love and be loved. This great social urge also is within us as powerfully as that separateness, that uniqueness that gives us identity. Let us look within ourselves with honesty and trust. We shall find there a personal center important to who we are. We shall find there something held in common with those about us, family, friends, neighbors, and in ever widening circles until we find that which we have in common with all people, something irreducibly human, something completely natural. This is the center of all religion, all love, all concern for others, and it is the center of all personal growth. May these few moments be a personal time for you, a time for that person within you who feels at one with humanity, with nature, and with all the universe that was, is, and shall be. Amen. Thank you so much, Kathleen and Renee. So really leaving me feeling warm listening to that, warm and welcomed. So I want to share about a baby in my life. My friend Tom has a 1-year-old named Ari who is starting to toddle. And Tom explained to me recently what it's like to witness his child find their power in the world, the power to toddle, the power of mobility. Learning to embody this power means falling down a lot. And sometimes that's painful and scary. When something alarming happens while Ari is toddling, or for that matter, as he's doing any of his exploring of this wacky world, Ari immediately looks for a nearby trustworthy adult in order to gauge how upset to get. If he falls or if there's a loud noise, he's shaken. And if Tom freaks out, then Ari freaks out. But if Tom is calm, then Ari may be rattled, but he's able to calm down sooner. Good parenting, I'm hearing, involves keeping our cool, sparking our kids' mirror neurons, that part of the brain that causes us to copy the posture and attitude of those around us. Our kids learn to embody their power by watching us embody our larger power. Our kids learn to embody their power when they're in a safe environment where they can bump up against their powerlessness and still be okay. In raising Ari, Tom often pulls out the magic words. He says, "Everything's going to be okay, honey." And Ari believes him. Ari has faith in Tom. Now, in growing up, Ari is going to find Tom's limits. There will be times when Tom thinks everything's okay and Ari disagrees. There will be times when Tom is rattled and Ari will find a different source of strength. Ari will need to widen his circle of support in order to bump up against his powerlessness and safely grow into his personal power. My topic today is embodying power. People often think of power over. To embody this form of power, you have to take power away from others, and it's often violent. This isn't what Tom is instilling in Ari, and it's not my focus today. Today, we're talking about power within and power with, tapping into a deep power that we all share in service of growth, in service of good. The paradox of this kind of power is that it's rooted in powerlessness. We have to experience being vulnerable in order to embody it. This power is alive in Dick's story of feeling nearly hopeless and then turning to others with similar experiences. In their shared powerlessness, they find commonality. People in recovery from addiction know something about this powerlessness. The first step in the 12-step programs begins, "We admitted we were powerless." In admitting that the problem you face is too big to be solved alone, you let go of solving it alone, and your energy is freed up to build relationships. And those relationships give you access to new perspectives on the problem and new tools for approaching it. Flying south in the winter is impossible on your own, but it's natural with the rest of the flock. Starlings are powerless individually to dance beauty into the sky, but together, each humbly themselves, they stun us into awe. Mental illness and addiction, well, it's no longer your problem, it's our problem. the National Alliance for Mental Illness, or 12-step programs. They're remarkable for drawing together an incredible diversity of human beings, people you've never had a chance to talk to as peers, but here you are in the same circle. Your addiction, your illness, your family member's crisis, it's widened your circle, and you found a safe space to bump up against your powerlessness and grow. So I'm wondering, and I'm going to scroll through the screens, have any of you seen the movie Don't Look Up? I am seeing a couple hands. Now, I'll just tell you, it's an apocalyptic satire about a couple of scientists who discover a giant meteor hurtling toward Earth. And I want to say that as your professional support on existential issues, I do not give a blanket recommendation for this movie. If you do watch it, don't watch it alone, and don't watch it right before bedtime. But it's funny. If you get the humor, it's pretty funny. The reason I'm bringing it up is because it depicts a reality where no one trustworthy is saying, everything's going to be okay, honey. And what do we do then? In that wild world without a comforting parent figure, how do we act in extreme powerlessness? What do we do? The movie protagonists appeal to existing power structures. They go to the President of the United States. They try to trust her, but they can't really because she's corrupt and scary and terrible. They look to corporate media to organize the public, and that's not really a go, which isn't a surprise. We see their personal despair, and it's so familiar. We see their interpersonal relationships, friendships, romances, and they're messy and funny, human. But love between two people on its own can't stop a meteor. What we don't see in the film is community. There's a little dollop of religion, a prayer spoken by one person. It's soothing, but powerless. And that missing piece is actually what gives me hope. Tell me a story of the end of the world, and I will look for the error in the plot, the missing prophetic community. This week, Kansas Interfaith Action, KIFA, coordinated clergy and religious people visiting the Kansas State House. I had the opportunity to go, as we shared earlier, with Kathy and Amelia from our community. Together, we took the opportunity to say, teachers need to be able to talk about slavery. The climate is changing for the worse. Voting should be easier, not harder. Food should not be taxed. And I can't believe we have to say this, but we do. All kids should get polio immunizations. Kifa's approach is relational. We're developing one-on-one relationships with legislators. We're looking them in the eye and we're saying, look up, there's a meteor. You can do something about it. So Kansas is small enough and Capitol visitors are few enough that our legislators can actually know who we are individually. And they can fret about how awkward the conversation is going to be when we point out to them later that they voted for something harmful. We have the power of water dripping on a rock, gradually boring a hole. But we only have it with each other. These one-on-one relationships have power because they're a part of an interdependent web. KIFA members meet ahead of time. We study the issues, we ask about each other's families, we decide on priorities. We bring the blessings of our religious communities and the threat that next time we'll bring more people and we'll pray more loudly, will be more annoying. And this blessing, this threat, is symbolized by the clergy collar, the stole, the yarmulke, the headscarf, the button. We're a diverse group, a wide circle with room for more. We admitted individually that we're powerless over the crisis of democracy in the United States, but we honor our shared longing for healing. And that's our prayer. And it's not soothing. And that's powerful. I'm going to return to my friend's son, Ari, for a moment. I'm thinking a lot about him because I'm flying out to California to meet him in person in a few months, in time to help his parents with a second baby who's on the way. I'm thinking of Ari growing up and all the trustworthy adults in his life showing him with our faces that everything is going to be okay. Part of what's exciting about watching someone find their power to toddle is that we don't know where they'll toddle to. We don't know that everything will always be okay, wherever Ari goes, whatever he chooses to do, whatever happens outside his control. But we do know that on this patch of grass, if he falls, he'll be fine. And we witness the miracle of him learning and growing in front of our very eyes. This is embodying power for all of us. Ari is learning to embody power, his power, and we're learning to embody a greater power, to hold the space for his growth. We only know how to do it because others did it for us, and because we continue to be surrounded by community, a community with greater power than we have on our own, a greater power that reflects back to us our value when we forget it, that encourages us when we fall down. We play both roles, the child inside the circle, bumping against powerlessness, and the more powerful adult holding a circle of safety. We are the tiny fur creature, and we are the slightly larger fur creature who kisses her on the tiny fur nose. As we mature, we widen our circles. We find wider circles of support for our growth, and we meet more diverse partners for the work of nurturing others. So speaking of maturity, American democracy has got to grow up. Our legislators need to embody power, power within, touching into their values, and power among, solidarity with the human race and other species too, bipedal and not. It is our job to show our legislators how to do it if they've forgotten. And it's our job to show them alarm when they're not safe, when we're not safe. Let us not be distracted by their legal power over us. Let us not be duped by the illusion of our power over them as constituents. This kind of power is not saving us from the meteor headed our way. We're not in control. But we do have power within and power with. And we can make more power with. It's made of compassionate witnessing, honesty about what we're individually powerless over, vulnerability, and action. It starts here, whatever circle you find yourself safe in, and then you let yourself grow. So let's start here in this circle, let ourselves grow, and embody some power by singing. We're gonna close our service today with hymn 1060 as we sing of hope and joy. And I'm gonna rise, I'm gonna stand up. I invite everyone else to rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn.
As we sing of hope and joy today, some know only anguish and despair. How can we lift our voices in this way, while some have pain and misery to spare? If a crumbling world we would renew, we must sing no ordinary song. Peals from a noisy gong will never do. In every breath compassion must be strong. Let this song our greatest hopes contain, laughter of a well-fed child, its tune, rose over every heartbeat, its refrain, its harmony from peaceful cities hewn. Sing of joy while hammering each nail. Sing of hope while pulling every weed. So shall we sing together and prevail. May every alleluia bear a seed.
Thank you, Renee. That's a new song for us. Really beautiful lyrics, beautiful melody. So I want to recall the image, the moving image of the starlings, remembering their beauty, and recalling, they're powerless individually to dance that beauty into the sky, but together, each humbly themselves, They stun us into awe. May we be like the starlings. Chalice is extinguished. So here ends our service and commences our coffee hour. Our plan today for coffee hour is to have a group discussion here in the main room, and Dick and I will stay here. We'll have Katie and Doug also helping us, holding space, and we can also do some breakout rooms. So if you would like a smaller group to chat in, let us know. You could raise your hand right now, and we'll be getting those together. And I'll answer. I saw a couple of questions in the chat, so I'll answer that. So would anybody like to break out into a smaller group right now?